Ask yourself how many times in your Islamic centers, in your MSAs, in your Muslim communities, have you seen women speakers, women involved in masjid boards, women involved in higher executive leadership, women scholars, women chaplains, so on and so forth? I'm not talking about that one time there was like one woman in the history of the entire masjid and it made the news and all this. I'm talking about, is there precedence? And is there a continuation instead of just a tokenization? I'm Chaplain Adeel Zeb. Welcome to our series, WoRx. This video is about giving agency to Muslim women. This hadith has a lot of family in it, so I'm going to break down the family in the hadith. Salim was the son of Abdullah. Abdullah was the son of Omar, the Khalifa, aka Omar ibn al-Khattab. So Salim reports that he heard from his father that the Messenger of God ﷺ said that if women ask you to go to the masjid, don't prevent them from going. So this has a lot of family in it. Again, I'm going to talk about these dynamics. So Salim is talking about an eyewitness account of his brother after hearing this hadith saying, by Allah, I will prevent them from going to the masjid. The narration says that Abdullah ibn Umar vehemently abused his son, Bilal, who said that he'd prevent women from going to the masjid. And Salim, who is narrating this incident that he sees eyewitness account in his, own home or the quarters, whatever it may be, said, I have never seen anybody get abused like that, like the way he got abused, at least from his father's perspective. Then Abdullah ibn Umar says, I'm telling you what the Messenger of God said, and you're telling me that you're barely going to stop them from going to the masjid? The reason why I mentioned this hadith and focus in on it is not because I want to discuss what is the abuse or disciplining the children methodology and problems or whatever it may be with it. But I wanted to focus on the fact that Abdullah ibn Umar was one of the greatest scholars of Islam, one of the greatest companions of Islam, was so vehemently opposed to preventing women from going to the masjid. And the Prophet ﷺ himself made it a precedence by stating it, and that becomes hadith, which becomes one of the two primary sources of Islamic law. An important point I wanted to reflect on was that when I was in Hartford Seminary, we were taking a class on readings in hadith with Dr. Ingrid Mattson. And we covered the hadith where the Prophet ﷺ had said that if a dog or a woman passes in front of you, it cuts the salah or breaks the prayer. As a man, I was like, okay, so if a dog walks in front of me, I gotta pray again. Or if a woman walks in front of me, I gotta pray again, right? But what was highlighted was that Aisha clapped back at Abu Huraira on this hadith. You just put us on the same ranking as dogs. And then she said, when the Prophet ﷺ would pray, he would push my leg to the side because we didn't have, much room or whatever it may be. And he would make a sajda, and then I put my, whatever situation back how it was, or you would continue to pray, right? So that was the, critique, right? And this was kind of, the top hadith narrators going at it. But Aisha was one of the top narrators, and so was Abu Huraira, right? And so she had that footing. And she also had a at-home perspective that the other companions didn't have of the Prophet ﷺ because she was his wife. We have a theory in education. If you can't see it, you can't be it. Ask yourself how many times in your Islamic centers, in your MSAs, in your Muslim communities, have you seen women speakers, women involved in masjid boards, women involved in higher executive leadership, women scholars, women chaplains, so on and so forth? I'm not talking about that one time there was like one woman in the history of the entire masjid and it made the news and all this. I'm talking about, is there precedence? And is there a continuation instead of just a tokenization? So Dr. Ingrid Mattson, who was on the ISNA upper levels executive board, she was empowered because there was a Muslim spiritual leader, Sheikh Noor, who would have her sit kind of close to him and would empower her to be at the table. And then she ultimately got into the executive level of ISNA, and she had to write down her comments because she wasn't allowed to speak at the meetings. And someone else read her comments. And then ultimately she became the president of ISNA twice. It's amazing to me that at Fortune 500 companies, you have vice presidents or higher level execs who are Muslim women. And then when they try to go back into the Muslim community, into the masjid leadership, they aren't allowed to sit at the table. There are Muslim women who are qualified speakers and reciters of the Quran who in major metropolitan cities in the United States, when they go onto stage, they cut the mic because they consider her voice to be her privacy. So in my 10 years working as a college chaplain at different universities across the states, there was a moment where we had to invite a Muslim speaker to speak at graduation. And I intentionally put a lot of women on this list, and I had some men on this list. And most of the Muslim men that I talked to about their rankings, they had the women ranked at the very bottom of the list. And I said, why do you have the women ranked at the bottom of the list? They said it's because we don't know who they are. We just know who the guys are. So this is a problem of agency, right? I, as a man, can walk into almost any religious setting and speak in almost any situation that I would like to. In America and other parts of the world as well. But if I was a Muslim woman, I would not have that same agency because of the dynamics in our community. So on this topic of preventing women from going to the masjid, Hind Mekki on her blog Side Entrance asks for and then ultimately exposes masajid that have inadequate prayer spaces for Muslim women. And sometimes there are good examples too. It's all negative. But I saw some of them myself and I was so surprised. I thought it was a prison. It was just so bad, the accommodations for Muslim women. And I think about some of the masajid in countries like Pakistan, for example, they don't even have a women's section. And so are you indirectly, preemptively preventing by not having a women's area in the masjid, right? It's something to think about. So one of the things that I've observed is that you have talents and you have specialties. As Muslim women, it's super easy to publish your own book and you can sell it on Amazon and you can do it based on your own specialties. Another thing you can do is get into YouTube, start your own channel, long form content, and then you can use that main content and make micro content for your other social media channels. And the other thing I wanted to mention was in regards to podcast. You can guest lecture on people's podcasts, start your own podcast, and really create that brand identity for yourself and reach the entire globe. The scholars of the past, the ones that we all know and we all quote, and you hear people quoting all the scholars and things of today, quoting scholars of the past, is because, of course, the quality, Allah's qadr, inshallah, their attention, but their students, the quality of their students documenting their work. Now you are those students. You are the digital natives who know how to use all these social media platforms. And sometimes these speakers that we're talking about, these female Muslim speakers, may not know this certain type of technology and skill set. So you can utilize your skill set to help increase the brand and reach of female Muslim scholars, activists, and leaders in our community. What you need to do is find out which female educator inspires, synchronizes, motivates you the most, and see how you can help them and reach out to them. People don't care how much you have to say until they know how much you care. And this goes both ways. To close this video out, I wanted to give a shout out to some of the inspirational Muslim women who are making waves in our community. Dr. Ingrid Madsen, of course, one of my mentors, Sheikha Muslima Permo out in Southern California, whose halaqah I attend to this day. Sheikha Aisha Prime at the Islamic Center of New York University, Dr. Tamara Gray, Dr. Zainab Alwani in DC and the East Coast, and so many others. Thank you for all the work that you do. You're an inspiration for all of us. May Allah continue to bless you and your families. If you found value in this video, hit that like button. And if you want more, check out our series, WoRx, 40 Ways to Reconnect to Your Own Heart into the heart of others. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.